Have you ever heard someone say Canada is so expensive, or you will save so much money living in India, but then wondered, is that actually true? Because here's the thing, comparing the cost of living between Canada and India isn't as simple as looking at currency exchange rates. A rupee is not a dollar, and a dollar is not a rupee. What really matters is how much do things cost relative to what people earn. So, if you're considering moving to Canada or just curious about how these two countries stack up, stick around. Today, I'm breaking down the cost of living in a way that actually makes sense. No misleading numbers, no unrealistic comparisons, just real practical insights that could make a big difference in your decisions. Hey everyone, if you're new to my channel, my name is Gautam. I talk about HR, careers, life in Canada, and much more beyond that. Consider subscribing to my channel because it's a win win. Your journey, my story. Alright, let's get into it. Before we even start talking about rent, food, or bills, let's get one thing straight. Cost of living only makes sense when you compare it to the income. Think about it, paying 50 rupees for a cup of tea in India might seem cheap. But if your monthly salary is 25,000, that's 0.2% of your salary on just one cup of tea. And now in Canada, you might pay $3.50 for the same tea. And that sounds expensive, right? But if your salary is $5,000 a month, that's only 0.07% of your income. So, what I mean, just something is priced highest in dollars does not always mean it's more expensive in reality. So, when we compare Canada and India, we're not just looking at prices, we are looking at purchasing power. Now, let's get into the one cost that makes the biggest dent in anyone's budget, which is nothing but rent. In a city like Toronto or Vancouver can cost anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000. And that's a massive difference, right? But here's the thing, Canadian salaries are also higher. Let's say you're earning 1 lakh per month in India. And if your rent is 30,000 per month, that's about 30% of your salary, which is gone. Now, in Canada, if you are earning $5,000 a month and paying about 2,500 per month for rent, that's about 50% of your income, which has gone towards rent. So, in many cases, rent in Canada eats up a large portion of your paycheck compared to India. And that's why so many newcomers have roommates or live in suburban areas to cut costs. So here's a twist. In India, home ownership is often the goal and many people buy property. In Canada, housing prices are so high that owning a house feels almost impossible unless you're earning a six-digit figure. Let's get to the groceries. Is food cheaper in India? The short answer is, of course, yes. But the long answer, it depends on what you eat and where you eat. In India, locally grown foods like vegetables, the fruits, lentils, rice are super affordable. And a kilogram of onions, you get it for 30 to 50 rupees. And a loaf of bread, you can easily get it for 40 rupees. But now in Canada, a kilo of onions costs $3 to $5 per kg, which is about 180 to 300 rupees. And a loaf of bread is about $3 to $4, which is again 180 to 240 rupees. But here's where it gets interesting. If you buy imported food, processed foods in India, obviously the prices shoot up, right? Because the fancy bottle of Nutella or a box of cereal, easily 2 to 3 times the price compared to Canada. And in Canada, though basic groceries are not cheap, but they're manageable if you cook at home. And here the real problem is eating out. Let's get into that topic, which is eating out. Is it considered a luxury in Canada? In India, eating out is pretty common, right? You can get a full meal from a decent restaurant for 200 to 400 rupees. Even in a nice restaurant, you can probably get for $1,000 per person. Sorry, 1,000 rupees per person. Now in Canada, good luck finding a meal under $15. Because a simple meal at a fast food place can easily cost about $10 to $15, which is almost 600 to 900 rupees. And a meal at a mid-range restaurant is again going to be $20 to $30. And if you want to have coffee at a Starbucks, it's easily going to cost you $5. So eating out in Canada is absolutely expensive, and so most people prefer to cook at home. And India, food delivery is so cheap that many people don't even bother cooking. When I was in India, I used to explore Swiggy, Zomato all the time. Let's get into the transportation part. In India, an auto ride might cost you 50 to 200 rupees, and a metro ride could be around 20 to 60 rupees. In Canada, a single bus or a subway ride costs around $3. So, in comparison to that, obviously, public transport is much more cheaper in India. And owning a car in India, you can easily buy a small Maruti Suzuki, which can cost you around 6 to 10 lakhs. In Canada, a similar car like Toyota Corolla costs about 25,000 to $30,000, which is almost about what, 15 to 18 lakhs. And the gas prices in India are approximately 100 to 120 rupees per liter. And Canada is also keeps fluctuating, which is about $1.50 to $2 per liter, which is again 90 to 120 rupees. So while fuel is similarly priced, car insurance is super expensive in Canada. Easily everybody shells out $200 a month. And I'm paying about $190 per month for my car. So if you rely on public transport, India is much more cheaper. But if you own a car, it depends on your lifestyle. Healthcare, the biggest difference, and here is where Canada probably wins. In India, private healthcare is super expensive, and if you don't have an insurance, you're screwed up. And a simple doctor's visit can cost you around 500 to 2,000 rupees just for consultation, right? And a hospital stay, you can get easily bankrupt. In Canada, absolutely healthcare is free. Yes, you might wait for appointments, but hospital bills are zero and you will be treated like you are in a five-star hotel kind of a thing. So, absolutely, you don't pay anything out of your pocket if you are hospitalized. And if you have a medical emergency in Canada, you don't get a bill at all. In India, unless you have a great insurance, like you said, you're paying out of your pocket. Taxes, which is obviously the trending topic now in India, of course, and evergreen in Canada. In India, of course, the tax rates are lower. Many people pay between 5 to 20%, but still complain. Even I used to complain. In Canada, I'm paying about what, 25 to 40%? Can't escape from those because province takes some, federal takes some. On top of it, again, we pay sales tax. In India, I think it's GST, which is around 5 to 18%. And here also GST, HST is again varies from 5 to 15%, considering which province you live in. I pay about 15% in New Brunswick, and Alberta people pay about 5%, and Ontario people pay about 12 to 13%. So it varies. So let's understand which is cheaper. If you're looking at numbers, India is obviously cheaper. But if you factor in income, quality of life, and purchasing power, it gets more tricky and complicated. Housing, absolutely, Canada is way more expensive. And groceries, India is cheaper, but imported goods costs more. I don't know how many of them would have imported goods, but still. And eating out, Canada is much more expensive. I had to think twice before I head out to eat something. And transportation, public transport is cheaper in India, but car ownership depends. And if you're living in large cities, probably it might be viable, like places like Toronto, Vancouver, because the public transport is pretty strong. It connects everywhere and anywhere. When healthcare, absolutely Canada wins there because you're not spending anything out of your pocket. And taxes, again, India has the lowest taxes as compared to Canada. And with that, Canada is obviously expensive, right? Yes. So people earn more? Also, yes. And the real question is, does the higher income in Canada make up for the higher cost of living? That depends on your lifestyle, absolutely. But what do you think? Would you rather have a lower cost of living in India or higher wages in Canada? Let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching Retails.